surprisingly, doesn't have a lot of Flash puns. I was expecting a lot of be back in a flash. So we're going to give it some points for that. And now we're going to knock off a bunch of points afterwards. So The Flash is a retelling of Flashpoint, where Barry Allen goes back in time to save his mom. And then the universe around him is changed. Characters are different people. Life is different. Barry Allen actually talks to women in this universe, and chaos ensues. I thought the beginning of this movie was absolutely nutters. It's like they didn't know how to set up this movie, and they were like, what if this crazy thing happened and Barry took a baby and put it in a microwave? We've all seen it on Twitter. We all know. I will say the scene is not as bad as everybody's making it out to be. Sure, he has this calorie counting thing at the beginning that never comes back up ever again during the entire movie. Like, not once is he like, oh my God, I'm running out of food, which I thought that's what that was setting up, but no, it was just for comedy purposes. Which, speaking of, this movie had a lot of comedy and a few laughs in the theater. And I'm talking about like a few laughs, like not many laughs that those jokes did not hit. That's all I'm trying to say. Although I did laugh at one or two parts. I will admit I did laugh at one or two parts. This movie felt more like an early Marvel movie than it did a DC movie, which is fair because in most movies and most TV shows, Flash is used mostly for comic relief. Something that did work really well was him playing off of himself and realizing how annoying he is and using that to cause him to mature a little bit. This movie got a lot of hate, and mostly for the CGI. Which, I'm going to be honest, it is bad. I will say it is bad CGI. Although I will say, I mean, it's kind of hard capturing what it looks like to go at the speed of sound. I think the CGI discourse, mostly on Twitter, has taken away the fact that this is actually a pretty decent movie. It has emotional beats, it's a decent story structure, and even though we hate him right now, Ezra Miller, he did a pretty good job. Especially playing off of himself. There's movies where you can tell that, that an actor is just reacting to somebody else. But in this movie, it really does feel like he's talking to himself. I thought Ezra Miller did a great job, even though he did do a lot of crimes. And I think this movie shouldn't have been as big a flop as it is, and that is the reason why. Crimes and the CGI discourse on Twitter caused a lot of people to not really want to go show up for this movie. I might be a bit biased though, because The Flash is one of my favorite superhero characters. He's number 2. He's obnoxious, just like me. I really see myself in him, and I wish I had super speed. I think it'd be the best superpower you could ever have. But I didn't think it was as bad as everybody is making it out to be. There is definitely worse movies out there. I'm not going to name any movies, but there were way worse movies out there that didn't move me at all emotionally. This at least did move me emotionally slightly at the end, and just a storyline around his mom. I'm glad that this movie had an ending. It didn't feel like it was setting up a sequel or anything like that. It tied it up perfectly and said, this is our story. Here you go. We're probably not going to get a sequel out of this. Anyway, so here you are. Here's a self-contained Flash story. And I think it works for what it is. Unfortunately, it's just coming out around all of these other multiverse stories. Like, if this was the first multiverse story that came out, I think this would have done a lot better in the zeitgeist. Because it is not doing well. I don't know how many times I have to say that, but it is not doing very well. Oh, another thing I didn't like was the romantic interest with Barry and Iris. It kind of just felt really forced, and at the end, it felt even more forced. I don't want to spoil it for you, but that's just another thing I had to shove into this video about this movie. And that is not the fault of Kiersey Clemons. That is just the fault of the movie itself. I think it did not know what to do with this relationship with Iris and Barry, and so they shoehorned it in there as fast as possible. To be fair, it's a Flash movie, so they have to be moving fast with these things. I think this movie is going to find its audience as soon as it hits streaming. I just don't think it's for the general public right now. I don't think people are going to go pay for it, as bad as that sounds. But I think once it goes and hits streaming, like Max.com, I think it's going to do pretty well, and it's going to have a little cult fan base for it, which is unfortunate because we're not going to get a sequel to it, as it flopped in the box office harder than any movie, any blockbuster has flopped in the past decade, I think. Don't quote me on that. I don't know. I'm just being dramatic for dramatic's sake. And I'm going to give this movie a solid 6 out of 10. Have you seen the Flash movie? What do you think about it? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you next time.